everyone, and welcome to a Drop Frame Spoilercast here for The Last of Us Part 2. Before we get started, we should probably introduce the guests, and then we'll talk about the fact that we're going to be spoiling the fuck out of The Last of Us 2. So if you haven't finished it, you haven't played it, get out of here. You don't want to hear this shit.
Yeah.
It's not for you. It's not the good shit yet. But let's introduce our guest. Co, how's it going? How's the past 2 weeks been? Crazy.
Fun.
As usual. Yeah. Okay. Great. That's a good face. That's a good face. Dan, I hear you know why Doc was banned. Please enlighten us. Oh, even Twitch is silenced you, man. You can't talk. You got lawyered, man.
Happens.
Jesus.
What happens, man?
They muted your mic. You know, I can't believe it.
Oh, there we go.
Well, that we would have found out. That would have been it.
Yeah, we would have had it, but we missed our chance. You can't say it again.
I had a DMCA right then at that moment, and they blocked me. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Well,
Look,
the
it
tier
happens.
3 subs do that though. They have a different audio channel, so.
The tier 3 subs got it. Right. That is a new feature here. You got to be careful. People will believe that. You got to be real careful with what you say, Ann. Ann, how's it going? Welcome to the stream.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about The Last of Us.
That's not a Last of Us guitar in the back, is it?
No.
Okay. I just had to make
that's
sure.
no.
Okay.
No, that guitar is
looks like a guitar guitar.
$2,300. So that's not
2,300 guitars? That's what you said?
No, the Taylor guitar, the Last of Us remake one, is like $2,300. It's expensive. Taylor guitars are really.
They actually made a replica. Oh.
Yeah, it's
Of
extremely
course
expensive.
they did. It's money.
Do you get 2 free fingers with it as well? Is that why it's so expensive? They ship you
No,
real.
they cut off your fingers as payment for the guitar.
Oh Jesus, that's the better joke. That's the better joke. All right. Once again, we'll rephrase that. We're gonna be spoilering everything about The Last of Us. So if you haven't played it, this is your last chance. Get out now. Be gone. Okay, we're
Also-
good. Wait, let's talk about it.
Okay, I have a thing I want to say.
Okay.
I've streamed on Twitch for a long time. The Last of Us 2, for many different reasons, was one of the most polarizing chat experiences I saw in my entire experience.
Yeah.
One thing I will personally ask for my chat, and really I think anyone that's joining us for this discussion today, please understand that people's opinions are all over the map. Do your absolute best to just respect other people's opinions, understand they're going to think differently than you, and most importantly, there's absolutely no need to attack people for how they feel about this game. Be it that it's the best game ever, or literally a flaming dumpster fire of crap and whatever you think it is. So
Yeah.
this is going to be the last I think I ever talk about this game is on this show, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. So, respect opinions, you bro.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's a good point. That's a good point for sure. I think it might be best. I do have like a couple opening questions that might set the, I guess, for people to pick sides right out of the gate, maybe is the best way to put this. I think me and Ann are both in camp. We like the game. Co's undecided. Co, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so
Middle.
you're middle ground. Okay.
There are parts of the game I felt were incredible and some of the best I've seen in gaming. And there are other parts of the game that I felt were pandering and frankly really just not good.
Huh. Okay, I'm interested to hear what parts those are. Dan, you absolutely want to take a 9-iron to the game. You're done. You hated it.
If I said I hated all of it, that'd be a lie. I liked the first half a lot, but the second half I hated a lot.
Okay.
So it balanced out.
Okay. Gotcha. And then secondly, I don't think it matters too much into the conversation, but just for, I don't know, full awareness. I started on Survivor, and then halfway through day 2 or part 2, day 2 of Seattle, I swapped to like light, just because I wanted to finish the game. Because the conversation then was not, let's see the end of the game. It was like, hey, can you just finish so you can get your opinion on it? So that's what I did. I did it in one sitting, and it was fun. Co, you played through the entire game on Survivor, correct? On the hardest difficulty?
Whole thing hardest difficulty.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan, where did you sit in the difficulty world?
I started on Survivor, and then I was hating the second part, so I turned it down to light so I could finish it faster.
Okay. All right. Anne, where were you at on everything?
I played the whole thing on moderate.
Okay. All right. Purely from a game gameplay perspective, What was what for you was the hardest part on Survivor? Because there were definitely parts where I was just like, this is actually making me not enjoy the game.
There were definitely a couple parts, particularly like one of them directly after the shrine to the lady, where there was like snipers in the towers and people approaching from all sides. That was pretty rough. Basically, the parts that I found the hardest were probably where there was lots of people and they were kind of having relatively complex patrol routes.
Ah,
The game on Survivor to me, I actually felt it was really fun. I really enjoyed the difficulty all the way to the end. It was difficult. I did die a lot, but
yeah.
at the same time, it made completing the areas very rewarding. One thing that I did comment multiple times throughout the game, and I still feel kind of firmly about, is I was a little disappointed on how they balanced the difficulty because the game is supposed to have a lot of gunplay, and I understand the need to reduce the amount of ammo the player gets on the hardest difficulty, but when it's to the point where it's like if you miss, you just don't get a bullet to hit that enemy with, then
Yeah.
that was a little much at times.
Yeah.
I was tempted more than a couple times just to kind of experience the game a little bit more, to go in and kind of up the drop rate on enemies. I did end up keeping it Survivor Vanilla, but I do kind of wish that they had been a bit more creative in how they implemented that difficulty, and would have had like more ammo and then like more challenges in some way.
Yeah.
Even if it was just the enemies being harder to take down, like I just would have liked to have shot more guns in the game,
Sure.
especially considering they have the cool upgrade system and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when I turned it to light, going into an encounter and having like 10 bullets in a single gun was just like, oh, what the fuck? What is what is this nonsense? It's like, what is happening?
On very light, if you could go in with a full clip, empty your clip, and get a full clip back from the enemies because they just dropped so much ammo. It was such a different experience.
It was completely different. And for you on moderate, where was the difficulty at? Do you stand by that difficulty? Were you happy with that difficulty?
It's like I get the wanting to have it be like scarce resources and stuff, but at the same time, I had that where I was like, okay, I'm going into an area. There's about 12 enemies, and I have like 4 bullets in spread across like 5 different guns or something like that. So it's like, what do I have all these different guns and I have like nothing to shoot?
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating. And like you would kill people, they just have infinite ammo, of course, and then you run over to them and they drop nothing at all, not a single thing, and that was pretty frustrating. So I don't know. I felt like I was fighting with that a lot, but I know there were like custom difficulty settings where you could increase like the amount of drops while keeping like harder enemies and stuff like that, but I didn't end up messing up with any of that.
Yeah, I didn't mess with that at all. Or Dan, did you guys mess with any of the like? I guess the accessibility options is essentially what that stuff is, where you can tweak
Right.
little finer granular details of stuff. Did you mess with that at all?
I didn't.
I adjusted the loot on Survivor in the first half from vanilla to hard, one notch back, because it was so frustrating not having bullets. So it was just like I just need a little bit more ammo. So I had one notch back.
Yeah.
And you can do it in midway during the game if you feel like you want to make it more fun. I like that none of the trophies are tied to difficulties, so you can like play it as you want because it's your game and you can have fun any way you want with it.
Yeah, that was definitely a nice part. I feel like at the beginning of the game when you choose Survivor, they do what kind of most games do when it says like this is not recommended for a first playthrough. I think this might be the first game where I've ever seen that and thought like this makes sense. I don't think you should play this game on Survivor's first playthrough.
Hey JP,
Yeah, what's up?
sorry to ask this. Is there any chance under drop frames you could put like spoilers : Last of Us 2 or something? I'm seeing a lot of people that are missing it in the titles and stuff.
On my channel, you
Just
mean?
at some point during the show would be great.
You're saying
Yeah.
like on all the channels.
Somewhere like on the actual screen. Yeah.
On the actual screen. Yeah, I'll figure something out here. Maybe Barrick do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that was the only game that I can remember where like the warning to you shouldn't play this on the first playthrough was valid. Because for a lot of purposes, I do find myself disliking the game more because of how, particularly there was one boss fight after you on Abby's portion, not necessarily a boss fight, but it was when you first meet the siblings, and you're down below, and there's 4 clickers and like 3 shamblers or something like that, or 2 shamblers in that one area. I think I was stuck on that spot for a little over or a little under an hour, because I had like 3 bullets, and it's like
Those
here's
areas are tough.
3 clickers, like 10 normal guys and 2 shamblers. Good luck. And you just have to run around placing pipe bombs. I feel like that's the most valid strategy on Survivor is pipe bombs. Like
They give you a ton of resources, just not ammo.
Yeah.
So it's like that's one thing that it took me way too late in the game to learn. It's like the game expects you to be using almost all of your tools all the time. It got to the point close to the end where I was getting maxed out on resources. Every time I would start raging because it's like, no, like the earlier part could have been easier. What have I done?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely intended that you use a lot of those tools in Survivor.
100%. 100%. Well, I guess I think, do you guys agree with the gameplay stuff? If you didn't like Last of Us 1, then you won't like Last of Us 2. That's not where most of the conversation I think about this game comes from. It's mostly the story, right? Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
I think I see a lot of people saying that like mechanically the game was interesting, but the story itself was the problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Dan,
Story and
go ahead.
Yeah, I would even go as far as saying the pacing. Like the way a lot of the content was actually pretty good. A lot of the cutscenes were phenomenal. Like there was a lot of emotionally charged, interesting things that happened throughout the game. But it's like the way it was laid out and the way that it was done, and some of the I'd go as far as even calling it some of the filler. Like it just seemed to be too much at times. But the biggest issue for me by far, the word is pacing. Like, oof, yeah,
I definitely felt like the
way off.
gameplay was disconnected from the story a lot. Like they were so separate from each other. Like what was happening in the story wasn't really affecting the gameplay during a lot of the middle sections of the game and the early parts of the game. Not later on, it started getting closer to being story tied with especially like Abby's section in the village, where it felt the story was affecting the gameplay. But a lot of the filler sections early on were definitely felt like I was just doing it because they wanted to have some gameplay time put in there.
Yeah.
Versus accelerating the game.
Well, let's talk. Go ahead, and then I want to jump to
like
that stuff.
When you first were playing in Seattle as Ellie, I really liked that they were like, here's this kind of open area where there's a bunch of different places that you can go.
Sure.
And that stuff was really cool. And then that was just gone for the rest of the game. So like that would have been cool to do more stuff like that. Go ahead.
It drove me crazy. I thought that was going to be like the first of 4 sections. Like I got so excited. I was like, oh, maybe this is just like a little taste of like a new semi-open world Last of Us. Like that was so much fun. And then it turned out to just be, that was it. It's kind of like a tease or something.
It's interesting because that for me was the worst part of the game in terms of a gameplay.
Really?
Yeah, I because I had anxiety, not from the game, but because I felt like I was going to be missing something in that area. Like if I didn't go to every single place, it was like, well, what if I'm like, especially on Survivor, what if I miss 2 bullets because I didn't go in the fucking pet store? Maybe I should have gone in there. So like, that part for me being open world was a little bit not necessarily my favorite part, but I have seen a ton of people say that was their favorite part because it was so different from kind of the normal gameplay loop of the first one. Dan, I think that was.
I did like how they had the map with the waypoints, and like when you got the thing on the map, it would exit. Like, I seriously could have done like just 5 of those sections and then an ending, and I would have been thrilled.
You don't think that would have gotten tiring?
No, I love the exploration. See, like it's so much more impactful for me, especially like in open world games where you can kind of make your own story. It's so much more immersive to me than just being on rails and like going through an amusement park ride, you know? So I and also it makes it so much more meaningful when you actually explore something and find resources or find that bandolier and stuff, because you're like, you know what? This is totally off the beaten path. There's a good chance that a lot of people just didn't do it, and it's like this is actually rewarding me for doing all of this cool like exploration and side stuff. So yeah, for me that's kind of where I'm loving it. Now, of course, it's not the normal genre of Last of Us, so it was a pleasant surprise to see that in there. Which is why I was also kind of surprised when it was like just that little section. But yeah, dude, I thought it was great. I love that part of it.
Yeah. Dan, you're a big fan of the open world stuff?
Yeah, that was super fun. I thought the game was going to be like that the whole time. I was like, this is such a cool change.
It was weird for them to include that and then not do anything.
Still mad that Shimmer was just blown up with a with a mortar right after that. I was like, whoa.
I feel like the game did a great job of making sure that you never felt safe at any moment. And I have a very particular thing to ask to see if it happened to you guys, because I don't know if it happened to Co, because people in chat told me. I think it was right after that shimmer area. You went into, there was a specific building where you go to a workbench. And if, depending on how you entered the building, the mobs or the guys inside interacted with you differently. So I went into this building, snuck past a bunch of stuff, went to the workbench, and as I'm like fiddling with guns and like thinking, oh shit, I get that, a guy grabs me and pulls me out of the workbench. Did that happen to everyone? Or was that, does that happen to everyone no matter what? Or is it completely, like if you kill them beforehand, do they still do that?
I don't think they're there beforehand. I think it's a different group of people from what I heard, because I was wondering the same thing, because I actually entered that area from the top. And then when I came down through it, the door that had the traps and stuff on it, all the traps were on the wrong side. So at first, me and my chat were like, well, this is the dumbest setup for a trap ever. And then we went out that way and it was like, oh, this is how I think you were supposed to go in. So
yeah, I think I came in through like a window or something like that.
Down
I don't
below?
remember how I got in there.
There was 3 ways. There was like front door, window down below, then up top.
Yeah. And I remember going in there,
saying, it always happens that way because that door is actually locked. Oh.
Yeah. I came up from the bottom floor, and then there's a door that was locked. And then after I interacted with the workbench, the door was unlocked and open. So they were in that room.
Gotcha. Which way did you come in, Ann? What were you saying?
I honestly don't remember, but I remember going in there and thinking like, oh, this is really weird. This place is super clean and they're growing tomatoes. So someone lives here. Oh, well, I'll just use the workbench. And then I'm like, oh shit, somebody's attacking me.
Yeah.
It was like you were saying, it's like you never felt safe. You're always like, something's going to go wrong.
Well, yeah, especially with the horse stuff, man. That stuff fucked me up with the horse. But go ahead, Co.
That scene also bugged the hell out of me. Because in that scene, the people are shouting at you like, we'll never be taken back. You can't bring us back and stuff like this. And the entire scene, I'm going, Ellie, just shout that you're not them. Like, you don't even need to fight. Like, just yell at, oh, I'm not trying to bring you back. It's cool. Like, we're fine. Like, the whole time they're screaming at Ellie, just like, we'll never take back. You'll have to kill us first. Blah, blah. And she's going around murdering them. And it's like, just say, okay. And
but
cool,
they're also shooting at her. And they attacked her first.
Yeah, Co, you wouldn't last long in the apocalypse. Okay, you can't be friends.
I probably would.
You can't be friends with everyone.
I probably would.
That's the 5 years ago lyric Arma strategy. Friendly. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That part and the horse part, I think, kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. I mean, if the game wasn't already set the tone at that point, that stuff kind of solidified it. Almost to a point where, like, towards the very end, when you walk out of that house as Abby and Lev, I'm forgetting the names of the 2 siblings. I think that's the right sibling. Yeah. And the Rattlers are there and like capture Abby. Like, that entire time you're in that building, like in the first time you're in California, I'm just thinking like, all right, well, when does like someone else come in here and just start beating up Abby for some reason and take her? Because like that's obviously gonna happen. And then second you walk out the door, it's exactly what happens. So they kind of did that a little bit too much, I felt, throughout the game, where they just tried to make everything super happy and nice, and then 5 seconds later, and everyone's getting their face chewed off by something. That was kind of the crux of the game. But let's talk about the story. First and foremost, I know me and Co were spoiled on Joel dying. Who else? Dan, Ann, were you guys spoiled?
Nope.
Yeah, someone said in my chat that Abby kills Joel, and I was like, I don't know who the hell that is. But that got spoiled for me.
Gotcha. For me and Co, I don't know if it was the same person, but there was someone on Twitter basically said that both Joel and Ellie died. And so the entire time I'm thinking like, is this where she dies? Is that, oh shit, she didn't. Okay. Wait a minute. Is it? Nope. Oh, okay. She's still alive. So I don't know if I had like more time to prepare for Joel's death, going in that was going to happen. But I'm curious on everyone else's point. Like, what did that do? How does that sit with you with Joel's death being so early on in the game and kind of setting the tone for the game?
I mean, the thing for me, Yeah, the thing for me, man, is like I get what the writers were trying to do. I understand that, the first was a story of love, the second was a story of hate. They wanted Ellie to be a more central character. But the thing talking about just the story,
Yeah.
the thing that kind of bugged me about Last of Us 2 is I really feel that the stuff that was really special about Last of Us 1 was the relationship between Joel and Ellie. And I honestly think that one of the reasons the game is so polarizing is a lot of people wanted that to be the story of Last of Us 2. They wanted to see Joel, who was one of the reasons Last of Us 1 was so popular and incredible, in my opinion, and many others, I think. They wanted to see his relationship grow. They wanted to have him be like a force, a real foundational element to it. And what they did instead was they introduced a new unknown character and Ellie and basically kind of removed Joel from the narrative for all intents and purposes. They kind of took him out early and they made him just a factor of Ellie's kind of like driving forward. So, I mean, I understand why they did it, and they wanted that kind of aha gotcha moment with Joel dying and everything, and they wanted that to be impactful. But at the same time, I definitely in another parallel timeline, there's a Last of Us 2 that explores the long-term relationship between Joel and Ellie, and I kind of would have rather played that game. Like I really feel that's what Last of Us 1 was so freaking cool and so special with was this evolving relationship. I wanted to see where that went. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing to be honest. Like and don't get me wrong, I took it for what it was, and it's still, we'll keep talking about it today, but it was kind of unfortunate to see that happen
Mm.
from a narrative perspective.
I I want to jump in on that, but I do want to get everyone else's opinion. So we'll circle back. And please express your own thoughts before responding to Ko's on that, because I think everyone does kind of. It is a very personal game in the sense of how you took the story, especially if you were super into the first one. Dan, for you, where does the death of Joel sit with you?
All right. I I completely expected Joel to die in this game. Like that was obvious. Like he did something bad. People are gonna hate him. He's gonna die at some point.
Sure.
I just felt so robbed of in how he died. His character, it seemed like he was a different character because he in the first game but he'd been living in that place for who knows how long, many years, and was still like tough as nails. He was like distrustful of everyone, and then he in the beginning of the game he meets a girl, saves her life, and then he runs into a group of her friends, and then like he doesn't question it at all. He's just like, yeah, like, hey, I'm here, I'm here. What's going on? Yeah, I'm trusting you guys. Like that's not the Joel I know. He would have been like, well, yeah, I don't trust this group of people that are just happen to be here. This is too weird. He wouldn't just run in there and be surrounded by them. And I felt like he deserved a better ending than what he got. I expected him to die just in a much better way, like a more dramatic way, more Joel way, because he's a tough motherfucker. And to put him down the way he did, would just felt cheap for me, and it ruined my expectations of the game from then on out because it just set such a bad tone for the rest of the game. And I eventually was getting over that playing as Ellie. I was starting to get over that through the first part, but I just felt robbed right out the gate with how he went out.
All right. And where does Joel's death sit with you?
So I wasn't spoiled at all. No, I muted all of the names from all of the characters on Twitter, and I didn't watch any trailers or anything. So I was like, I tried to stay away from it as much as I could. Um, it was a shock when it happened, and I think that for me that made it more emotionally impactful because there wasn't any foreshadowing. There wasn't like there was nothing like telling me that this was going to happen. It was just so sudden. And I knew when they said that like Abby was like, we're looking for this guy, I was like, oh, I wonder if they're looking for Joel. And so for me, I think it was more emotional because I didn't expect it and because it was so sudden. And that's to me more accurate, or I guess more in line with what I would expect of like a post-apocalypse world where like you don't have any warning that people are suddenly going to be just like ripped from your life. So he's dead. Like that's it. And I think that like they show the story of Joel from the past 4 years that we weren't in the story through these flashbacks where you can see him interacting with Ellie as like a kid, and we find out that Ellie like learned about what happened at St. Mary's Hospital, and then kind of the thing where they were like butting their heads with that.
Yeah.
But I liked it because it was like you were saying, where you don't feel like you're safe at any point during the game, because that's how it. I mean, we can only guess, but that's how it would be, I think, in an apocalypse situation, where you're not going to get like any kind of warning, and the hero dies sometimes. It's like the first like couple seasons of Game of Thrones, where there's no warning. It's just like, well, anybody can die. That's it. Joel's not safe either, just because he's like your favorite character. Um, so I don't know. It was obviously very sad, and it was horrible, and I hated Abby straight away.
Sure.
Um,
It did what it intended to do, or what
Yeah.
they
Yeah, it's
intended to do.
exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah, I guess my own thoughts are on. I knew that Joel was going to die. As soon as I kind of saw Abby, I started thinking like, well, this person. At first, I thought it was it Eli, whoever the like Firefly that was with them, the old guy. I thought that's who they were looking for. I forgot his name because they didn't do anything with it.
Oh,
The person who was
right.
growing weed, whatever that guy's
Yeah.
name was. I thought that's who she was looking for. Then, yeah, the whole thing kind of played out. I, I'm fine with it. I think that the game kind of hinges on that particular point of if you were able to move past and empathize with Abby as a character, then you enjoyed it. If you were able to not do that, then you hated the game. And I feel like that's like such a huge hinge on where you sit with the game as a whole. But in terms of like the actual storytelling of it and killing Joel off right out of the gate, like it's a completely different story if they didn't do that. And the idea of like showing you a circle of violence throughout the entire game where it looks like a conspiracy board in terms of who kills who and how they kill them. And some characters got like literally 5 seconds of mourning. Like Jesse got shot through the fucking head and no one said anything. Like that one fucked with me a lot too. And then like Miguel, when he got shot in the head, you're just kind of, oh God, well, I guess he spit on Joel. So anyways, I guess let's just move forward. Like that type of stuff. I kind of wish they paid a little bit more. I don't want to say respect, but in some sense, I struggle with that too. Cause like, that's kind of the apocalypse, as Anne was saying, like you kind of have to move past that stuff or you're going to die as well. So yeah, I'm fine with it. I think they told the story they wanted to tell. I enjoyed, the stories that they wanted to tell, but I think that is like such a central, fork in if you enjoyed the game or didn't enjoy the game, in terms of if you could actually empathize with Abby throughout the game, and by the end of it, like realize, or not realize, but just empathize, to use the word again. I do think that the Joel death was pretty fucked up though, like pretty gruesome. Like that was, I don't think
The knee thing, man, especially.
I don't think I've watched,
Oh man,
like whatever you want to call that scene. I was trying to think of other mediums where I've seen that type of shit before, and that one like definitely fucked with me. But it was probably because I played the first game and was like so attached to him. It was pretty brutal though. I guess it was like The Walking Dead. A lot of people are saying it was like, well, I don't want to spoil that, but there's a character that dies in The Walking Dead that a lot of people said was similar to that. So I guess I can see that. It was a lot though. Yeah, I don't know. Where in terms of like the point, was that the point for you, Dan, where you didn't like the game? You said you liked the first half of the game. So was it essentially when they made you play Abby is when you started disliking it?
Yeah, when they made the switch, which I thought was going to be a short flashback to Abby, and you realize you have to play her for 8 hours, I was like, like I just didn't like how at that dramatic moment they were building up to, we're just going to cut away for 8-10 hours, however it takes to get to the second part.
Yeah,
that part I didn't like. I think it would have been better for me if we had been playing each day as each character and then switch at the end to them being combined. But it just felt like that killed the pacing of Ellie's part. Like I'd forgotten most of it by the time I got back to Ellie.
I don't mean to cut you off there. Was your thought finished, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was finished.
What were you saying, Co?
I was gonna say also they kind of they use the same tool and they do it in different ways, so expectations get messed up. So they have like flashbacks, and they're all about Joel and Ellie and stuff like this, and they use these flashbacks to tell the story. and then all of a sudden the perspective shifts, and you don't know if this is like a flashback or an actual perspective shift. So then all of a sudden there's a flashback in the perspective shift, and it's just like, what is going on here? And then it's like flashbackception as you're trying to like, wait, is this time or this time? And am I still in this character? And
Can you
where's
give a
Ellie during
specific
like
example there?
so like after the Ellie scene where she gets busted by the other girl, and they're kind of like doing their standoff thing, and then it kind of switches perspective, and then it does that for a little bit, and then there's a flashback in that perspective shift of her and her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, and then that kind of starts rolling a little bit, and it's kind of like I remember multiple times during the game, I'm like, okay, is this happening? Okay, this is when this is happening. This is before this, but after this. So I'm just kind of like, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of a big dumb. But at the same time, it's so much like it created issues for me where it's like it didn't. I kind of was still so kind of stuck on the previous stuff that it's kind of like I want to care about this, but I kind of want to get back to what I was doing, and that kind of really affected my enjoyment of what I was going through at that time.
Sure.
So just like Dan said, like if there was more of a parallel storytelling where it's like, okay, this happened, and then I do a little bit of this, and then I'm back to this. But it got to the point in the perspective shift where I was just like, oh, okay, there's more. Okay, here's more. Okay, that's cool. When are we getting back to the other thing? And it's just kind of that really kind of just shot it in the foot for me a little bit.
So that didn't give any for you specifically. So you the I don't know, that the pushing of Abby as a character there in terms of like showing you backstory and showing you why she is the way she is through those different type of narrative stuff, that didn't do anything for you. It was just like, hey, I
Oh
want to see
no,
what the fuck
not only
happened.
did it do something for me, by the end of the game, and I know this is going to be a point of contention. I'll just warn you now, chat. I was actually Team Abby by the end of the game.
Sure.
I was hashtag Team Abby. I
Yeah.
was. I thought that her story was a little bit more kind of realistic. I felt that like I totally understood where she came from with what she was doing. I mean, Joel, like just like Dan said, Joel had a time limit counting down above his head from the end of Last of Us 1. Like he was
Yeah.
not going to live a happy life. We all knew that. So it was just a matter of who was going to kill, and Abby, I mean, dude, the Abby got her dad killed basically in front of her by the guy. Of course she's going to go on a big revenge thing and want to kill him. Like they had, because you have, and as you learn about the relationship, it just makes more and more sense. So no, I liked all that stuff, but the thing that was so unfortunate is while I was kind of trying to enjoy that, I had this thing in the back of my head where I was just like, let's just kind of get through this so I can get back to the thing that I'm really interested in seeing. So it just would have been so much better if it was in little snippets. If it had been like the content was good, just the ordering was totally bad for me. It would have been so much more immersive to the story, and so much more better told if it had been more of a flow instead of this like conjointed, like not really working, like kind of like we want you to feel this now, so we're going to show you this scene, and we want you to feel this way now, so we're going to show you this scene.
Sure.
And it felt so contrived. So yeah, I feel that I really do feel that if they took all of the content of Last of Us 2 and did like a re-edit or a director's cut, and they basically just took everything but ordered it differently, it would be a better game.
I did see that there was I don't know where it started. I've seen a bunch of people say it. That said if you played as Abby first and then you did Ellie's side, that it would have been a more enjoyable game. I think that would have been a Metal Gear Solid 2 situation though, where people would just be fucking super upset that they're not playing as Ellie first and foremost, just like with playing as Raiden and all that shit. But I could see where it would
But I mean, even
change the story.
going back and forth with that would have been interesting.
That would have been more confusing.
Making,
that would have been so much more confusing timeline wise.
Making a few pivot points that clearly connected the two characters. Like I think that could have been really, really well done. Like I see how at the beginning with the Abby stuff, they wanted to hide it and they wanted to make that more of a surprise and stuff. Like that was a big part of the first part of the game.
Yeah.
Is who is Abby? What is she doing? Who are these people? Like honestly, I think that they could have gone around that and kind of like started that off with more of a focus, and it would have been just as good. Also, going in the pacing thing, having Joel die so early and then having all the scenes with Joel after, I completely get how they're like, oh, everyone knows Joel is dead, so they're going to be so much more impactful. But I feel Joel's death would have been so much more impactful if we had seen all that character development with Ellie and them before it happened. because it made the Joel scenes and stuff like that just kind of like, well, I guess, he's not around anymore. So we know that all this is just kind of like in the past memory stuff. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this,
Yeah,
but I
I
felt like the
disagree.
death scene with Joel would have been so much stronger if we would have seen all this character development first. We would have seen that they had this like complex and incredible relationship, and then they dropped the hammer
I mean,
instead of them dropping the hammer and then just having them be like super sad flashbacks.
I think those scenes still make it stronger though. Like if anything, I think they're setting the player up to hate Abby more and more at the same time making you empathize with Abby as those scenes are playing out in the latter half of the
That's the
game.
thing. I think they're trying to do that, and that's why it feels contrived. Like the fact that they choose to show you all this information after the event is them purposefully trying to make you feel this way, just so their other stuff will mean more to you at a later point in the story. It obviously doesn't make sense in the term in course of the story. They're just kind of playing with the emotions of the purple person playing it to try to generate this emotion from. So that's one of the things that kind of got me. Like I was kind of like, I much would have rather like to have made my own kind of interpretation of this, given all the facts, instead of having them kind of like try to force me down this path of how I should feel.
Hmm. I mean, I get that. It either works or it doesn't, right? Like that's a personal thing on if it works for whoever it is that's taking in the story and it doesn't work. I think it definitely worked for me, but I could see from your point of view how it didn't, clearly. Um, yeah, I don't know. I going back to the idea of having them kind of be segmented and jumping back and forth. I actually found it enjoyable trying to figure out like where Abby and Ellie were going to intertwine in the sense of like, when is she going to find out that Ellie did this? When are you going to like, when a great point for me was when you first get to um, the hospital where Nora is at, and she's talking to kind of like the receptionist, and it's the girl that is listening or playing Hotline Miami that Ellie kills with the knife to the back. And I saw that and I was like, oh shit, like, okay. So Ellie hasn't been here yet, obviously, because that person hasn't been sent down below to guard the water. And like as I saw more and more of that stuff, very small granular bullshit, I was more interested in the story and how they were going to tie all that together. Um, but I could totally see how if you weren't invested in that type of stuff or it didn't do anything for you, how that just kind of like passed by.
Also, before we get too far away from the topic, I am
Sure.
super interested in hearing Dan and Anne's thoughts about like what they thought about the pacing of the story in general.
Yeah, for sure. Whichever one of you feels like jumping in first.
Yeah, so I did have that moment where we play through as Ellie, and you have like a flashback or two, and then you play through as Abby, but then you have the flashback to the aquarium. And so there was a moment where I was like, okay, wait, so it's Seattle day 2, but now we're going back in time again and like finding it's like something about this past and like so I did feel like there was a moment where I said on stream like I don't know what the heck, I don't know where we are anymore. I feel very like confused about the timeline. But I think by the end of it, especially when you're playing as Abby and you get to the aquarium after Ellie has been there and killed Owen and Mel, that part was when they all kind of collided. I was like, oh shit, like that was really cool. So in the end, I really did like it, but in the moment, I was pretty confused by like the back and forth. But I don't agree that like going one and then the other and then one and then the other would have been better for me. I like that we kind of spent a lot of time with Ellie in the beginning. Because imagine how pissed people. I mean, people are already mad they don't get to play as Joel or whatever. And so now it's like, imagine you're like, well, now you have to play as this woman that you don't know, and you have like no story reason to care about her.
Well, I was already pissed when you had to play as her to begin with, right? Like when they give you the little bit, you're just like, who the fuck? Yeah. No, what is going on? I don't want to play as this super buff.
I killed her so many times when I played through on purpose. It was great.
Yeah,
so many times.
I think that's I got through her killing Joel by just being like, oh no, the clicker is eating Abby again. Shucks. I guess we'll have to watch this in great detail. Oh, okay. Anyways, let's move on a little bit. So yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Dan. Dan, for you, what about the pacing and everything? You kind of talked about it a little bit, but do you have?
Yeah, I felt there was a lot of points in the game where nothing was really happening. It was a lot of like just moving from A to B without a lot of story happening. But It felt all right because it was just like we're exploring. The open world section is going to be a little slow on storytelling and stuff, but it was all right. I thought it definitely sped up towards the end of each half of the game. Like, but the first couple days were a little slow for both characters. Where not a lot of big stuff was happening, like a little here, a little there. But overall, that was okay pacing wise. It could have been better and tighter, but I guess they were just going for having more freedom and slowness in the first couple days of each character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Co, you mentioned that you enjoyed Abby's portion of the game better in terms of a gameplay aspect, correct?
I liked the gameplay throughout the game. I feel is one of the strongest parts about it. I love the flow of it. It was a lot more defined than Last of Us One. Things felt a lot lighter. I definitely enjoyed the gameplay big time. That plus the levels and the actual level design were the best parts of the game for me, especially the level design. I'm almost close to saying that Last of Us 2 has some of the best post-apocalyptic levels I've ever seen in a game in terms of organicness and immersion
Oh, yeah.
and just overall design. They were absolutely phenomenal. Which is one of the reasons that I wasn't a huge fan of the story. I was like, I recommend people play this game. Like it's beautiful just to walk through. If nothing else, you'll love it. But I did really like Abby's character. Even though it was a pretty obvious story device. And again, I do feel like it was specifically there to just kind of like propel certain emotions and certain story elements forward. I did like the character. I specifically liked the character, like the sidekick, the guy that he gets along, the guy that she gets along the way, and how that kind of tied into the ending and everything. I also liked her kind of end experience as well. So I did absolutely like her as a character. I feel that she could have been presented better. I feel that a lot of people hate her because it's exactly what the writers wanted people to do. And Lev. I thought Lev was awesome. I actually
Oh, yeah.
liked his character a lot, and
He's
how
great.
that relationship kind of grow. I thought that was fantastic. But yeah, I really liked the whole thing. I liked her, and definitely by the end, especially like man, when Ellie was in that farmhouse and made the decision to leave, I was just like, "Girl, you have already game overed versus Abby twice. Like 2 times now, this girl has leveled you.
Yeah.
And you have like the perfect life, and now you are going out to do it again." Like I seriously I wanted a game over screen more than anything at that point.
Same here.
Just
I wanted the
cool.
credits
Let
to
it
roll.
go and the game's done. Credits roll. This is great. Awesome. Um so the whole situation was just infuriating. But yeah, I liked her. I did like her. I definitely I thought it was good. I liked how she had some really complicated emotions, especially during it. Like her pregnant friend just got killed, and like you could see the fire in her eyes when she learned that other girl was pregnant, and Lev had to kind of hold her back and everything. Like there was a lot of complexity there that I thought was kind of I liked seeing them kind of play with. But no, I did dig it, and I thought overall she was good.
Yeah,
I did like it.
I thought from a gameplay perspective, she was just more fun to play. Like
Mhm.
she was definitely like what Joel
Hated the shank
was.
though. Oh,
The
hate that
what?
mechanic so much. The shank mechanic where you have to build the
Oh, the
shanks and everything.
shiv,
I
the
hate that.
shiv.
Yeah.
Shivs, yeah, I was so happy when I saw that Ellie didn't need them, and then they brought them back for her, and I was just like,
That's true.
no.
Yeah.
She
Oh
just came from
god.
a freaking army base. They couldn't give her a good knife. I mean,
Right?
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. You
Yeah.
couldn't bring some badass Bowie knife with you or something? Like, oh my lord, dude.
They all have like shotguns and sniper rifles and crossbows and all that stuff, but she can't build a knife that lasts for longer than 2 stabs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like we're playing Zelda again. Ah!
Well, it was very much playing Joel, right? Like I felt like that whole sequence with Abby was Last of Us One all over again, right? Like you're playing with someone who kind of humanizes you. And Lev, you were having to craft shivs because you're not nimble. You're like a big, buff badass walking around, just kind of like Joel. I felt like that game was much more, or that portion of the game was so much more similar to Last of Us One than the first half was. From a gameplay perspective, not speaking story or anything like that, which is why I probably enjoyed it a little bit more. I also thought in a lot of cases it was somewhat easier than Ellie's stuff. For the parts that I did play on Survival, I didn't do on Survivor for the Rat King boss. Was that thing a pain in the ass? The guy that was like the amalgamation of all the different infested.
The bottom of the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name was the Rat
he was
King.
The Rat King.
Yeah, I somehow had a relatively easy experience with him. But then again,
Okay.
I spent the entire first part of the fight just running around and getting every available resource. And I ended up like ending it with just about every resource spent. I only ended up dying a few times, but I did
Okay.
use like most of the stuff.
Yeah, I thought totally, and as an aside, I thought the Rat King stuff, even on light, was definitely me just running for my life, screaming because of how horrifying that guy was with the red lights flashing and you're just doing circles like, yeah. And then when the little part of him breaks off and that thing's a little bit faster, yeah, that fight was very.
That was
well
harder
done.
for me.
Really? Oh, did it one shot you on
That
survival if
was
they grabbed you?
significantly harder for me.
Okay.
Yeah, like I didn't have too hard of a time avoiding the big guy, but that little dude, man, he's a piece of work, is what he was.
Yeah, that sequence was terrifying for sure. Yeah, I'm not. So I guess the end of it, we can kind of talk about the end. Cole, you mentioned when she leaves how you wanted the credits. I think I agree with. I wanted credits. Like it's a happy ending when they're at the farm and Ellie's gonna have some PTSD and she'll have to deal with that and let's roll some credits. And then when Tommy shows up, I thought Tommy fucking died. I thought Tommy took a gunshot to the face.
You
And had
could
his,
see
yeah.
the side of his face was like lazy and his eye was cloudy, so he took a bullet to the face.
He had a mark right here, so it looks like it grazed him. So they didn't really like. I didn't go back and watch the actual cutscene when he gets shot, but it definitely looked like he had his head blown off there. So that was kind of a cool reveal when I first saw him, but I knew exactly why I was there after the fact. And like, I was hoping that was going to be the end, and then it went, and it wasn't. So I'm curious on everyone else's thought. Like, was it too much? What was that kind of like? Was that harping too much on the idea of revenge? With having Tommy show up, and did it work for you or did it not? I guess is maybe the question. I think you kind of gave your thoughts on it in terms of like you wanted it to end right there. But did it work for you? Like did the idea of Ellie leaving the way she did make sense?
Only for the PTSD stuff.
To kind of finish
like,
that, to get resolution.
He obviously was really still dealing with the demons. So that I think it was good they included that and didn't just have him show up out of nowhere. But the decision to leave it all behind for it, I felt a little weird. But yeah, what did you guys think?
Yeah, and Dan, what did you guys think?
I definitely had that moment while playing the game where she gets out of bed and goes to close the window. And I was like, okay, now we go back to bed, roll the credit, happy ending. But I think that if it had ended there, that would have been unsatisfying. And I did feel like it was, once we started the next section, I was like, maybe this is going on too long. I'm not sure. But I really liked the way that the game ended. And so for me, I'm in the end, like after, looking back on the whole experience, I'm glad that it did keep going on, even though at the time it felt like too much. I was and am still mad that Ellie made that choice, but also dealing with PTSD, having watched someone's head get caved in right in front of her, someone who gave his life for her many times to or tried to, sacrifice himself for her and that kind of stuff. Like that kind of makes sense to me that she would try to, that she wasn't able to let go of it. She couldn't just move on. Everyone else was able to move on, and for her, she wasn't able to. And that's, different people deal with trauma and loss in different ways. And that's where they kind of bring up like, Jesse gets shot in the face and then everyone just kind of moves on from it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. But for Ellie, clearly she wasn't able to let go of it. She was compelled to keep going and to try and seek her revenge. And I think that's kind of in the end, the whole point of the game is like, there aren't good characters and bad characters. They're all kind of morally gray, And that's where you're kind of mad at Ellie. You get to that point where you're like, just stop. Like she let you live twice. She could have cut Dina's neck open and she let you live and you're still going. Like, why? So then I think that point you start to kind of the balance of who you're like rooting for kind of starts to fit because you're like, Abby's just trying to move on. she's trying to go forward with her life, and Ellie is like a rabid dog, just like chasing her down, and you want her to stop, even though you like Ellie. So I think that for me, it was important for that to happen, so that you would really start to see Abby as like the more mature person who has like moved forward and has let Ellie live
Sure.
twice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dan, where do you sit with everything?
I was in totally Camp Tommy. Let's hunt this woman down, kill her. She's still out there. She freaking murdered
I'm seeing
Joe.
a trend, Dan.
Joel.
I don't think you're
Yes.
over Joel's death, is what I'm saying.
No, I did not move past that point. That's where the game did not work for me. I did not move past. Oh, I forgive her. Or I empathize her. Oh, she has a puppy. That's cute. I was like,
But
we
you
need to
killed the
hunt her
puppy,
down
Dan.
and
Ellie
murder.
killed it.
And I was. It gave me such false hope that we're going to go out there and actually kill her this time. And the ending.
Yeah.
I personally felt that the ending would have been better for me if they let the player decide, have you forgiven Abby or not? And then you as a player could decide whether you want to kill her or forgive her. And then I would have been satisfied. And a lot of people would have been satisfied. And then other people and everyone who liked Abby would have been satisfied too. But they kind of didn't give me that choice, and I had to go through that ending, and I was very sad. Very, very sad.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, it's really interesting because on one side, it's kind of like this is obviously a narrative, and this is somebody else's vision, and we're experiencing their vision. So I understand why they didn't give us the choice. But on the other hand, the story is so clearly designed to make the person watching and experience it to specifically feel things at specific times. It wants you to feel certain ways. So I think by giving the player a choice, it would have been a much more interesting thing, kind of like a question, did it work? You know, like did the way that we presented this to you, did it actually sync up to the way that we wanted it to? I purposefully lost that fight as hell.
Oh, the first time through?
So like multiple times. I just in different ways. I wanted Abby to win. So I would have been one of the people that said, I want like let Ellie not kill her. But I think it's also super interesting that there's people like Dan that are like, kill that mother. So, you know, it's like it's so I think it would have been very cool to have that be like kind of a, you know, hey, how'd we do? Like we clearly made an effort to make you feel a certain way. How'd we do?
Sure.
I think that could have been very interesting. And even more interesting if they would have later like released all that information and been like, did it work?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel it. I think that would have been cool and interesting, but I feel like that's not the story they wanted to tell. They wanted to tell the story of breaking the circle of violence, right?
Yeah.
And like they
The
did
narrative.
that through showing you, like Ann said, where no one in this world is a good person. Everyone in this world is awful because the world demands you have to be awful if you want to survive, essentially. And that's, you know, when I thought it was a little bit stretched out when like she goes over to get in the boat and then you see her like clench her fist and I was just kind of like, come on, Ellie, just get in the fucking boat. Like, what do you
just
fucking
go.
get in the fucking boat and just leave? Like, we don't need to beat. She's gonna beat your ass again. I know she was on a beach and has been like out in the sun for a couple of weeks. Like, just get in the fucking boat. And then when she started drowning her, I was like, well, maybe she actually is gonna like kill her. Maybe like they let that go
I
on
thought she
to
was
like
gonna
the
kill her in that
last
scene.
second. Yeah.
Yep.
And then let up.
I honestly thought she was going to kill her in that one little scene. I was like, oh shit, she's doing it. Like, this is happening.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's the
I was
point
like,
where
redemption is so close.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you saying?
I was gonna say like that's the point where she was like you're playing as Ellie drowning Abby, and I was like I don't know how to stop this. Like I don't want this to happen because not because I was like oh team Abby like Abby's great you know but because and I pointed this out in my playthrough where the song that Joel is singing, that Pearl Jam song,
Yeah.
where he says like, if I were to lose you, I would surely lose myself.
Mm.
And I think that line in that moment, like, if you choose for Ellie to kill Abby, then she's completely like she's already started going off the deep end. She just beat the shit out of Nora in the like basement of the hospital. She killed Mel. She killed Owen. She killed all these people. And it's like, how much further does she need to go? How many more people does she need to kill? She kills Abby, and then Lev wants revenge, and then there's just like this complete, like it just starts over.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, I was seeing Ellie losing herself by choosing to leave the house, the farmhouse, and choosing to continue this like cycle of violence, like you're saying. Um, so I wanted her to stop. Like you're saying, I just wanted her to get in the boat. Just go the fuck home. Go home to your stupid sheep and your baby and your dumb records, and just like let it go, you know. But she couldn't until
And
that moment.
in a lot of cases, the like epilogue, I guess, as it were, after that, hit 10 times more because she literally lost. She can't even play the fucking gift that Joel gave her because she's missing 2 fingers.
Yep.
So like that whole scene was just kind of, I just like,
That's when I cried the most.
yeah,
When she couldn't play the guitar anymore, that's when I cried the most, because that's when I was like, you actually did. You lost yourself, and you lost that moment, that memory that you had to share with Joel.
yeah,
Because now I mean, you can relearn to play the guitar, like, but in that moment,
yeah,
you totally lost it.
yeah. I'm curious for everyone else, the scene with Joel and Ellie that you get after the dance, in the sense of where they kind of reconcile a little bit, and I think that's supposed to be the last conversation that her and that Joel and Ellie have. Was that impactful for you, or were you kind of already over it, so to speak? Dan, I'm curious your answer, being that you were kind of not into into the story at all at that point.
I was like, they were just about to make up, and then Abby comes in and ruins it all again.
Sure.
They were just about to
Sure.
move on and like maybe be at least somewhat comfortable with each other again, and literally then that night he dies.
So it did the opposite for you. If anything, it made you hate Abby more.
Oh, maybe despise her more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not find her a good person throughout the playthrough because of a few reasons. They wanted you to feel like that she was a complex character and stuff, but she just came across to me as a psychopath in a lot of ways, because she met Lev and this other girl
Yara.
for one day, and then she decides to murder all her friends she's known for years to protect these 2 people that she just met. She had all these connections. They knew her name. They called out Abby, her name, and she would just murder her friends, hundreds of them, to save these 2 people she literally just met. They seem like nice people. They're cool, but I don't know if I'd be willing to just kill them all to save these 2 people I literally just met that day. And there were so many little moments like that. And then she cheats on Owen. Her cheats with Owen on her friend Mel, which was not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And it just all these little things that kept adding up made me not like her when I was supposed to be liking her or sympathizing with her. And like that, I just couldn't. And of course, she didn't, like, her father died from being shot, which sucks. And I can understand, go kill Joel, but she didn't just kill Joel. She tortured him for hours and hours, and then she bashes his head in with a golf club in front of Ellie, basically his daughter now.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get past that, like how sadistically she murdered Joel. She didn't just kill him; she ruthlessly tortured him and then killed him in front of Ellie.
Well, she didn't.
I couldn't get past that.
She didn't know who Ellie was, so that was not a part of her killing. Correct? Like,
Well, it was kind of ambiguous.
she still tortured him, 100%. I'm not saying she
Yeah.
didn't, but
No.
yeah, she didn't do it in front of Ellie on purpose in that sense. Like, Ellie was
Like,
just some random girl.
Your daughter figure who you spent months
Yeah.
keeping alive, and then that none of that was in her mind.
Yeah. She kind of, no, she knew afterwards, chat. A long time afterwards, for sure. Yeah. She didn't know in the moment.
It's still fucked up, but
yeah, I'm not
She
trying
also
to say,
never
like,
felt
look,
bad
she
about
just like tortured her, guys. Come on now.
Well,
I mean, it's just a golf club to the head. Come on.
yeah.
Kind of speaking to Dan's point, like, remember when Ellie had done everything with Mona? I want to say her name was, where she was that her name?
Dina? What are you talking about?
When she was in the hospital girl. When she
Nora.
found her and, like,
Nora.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Nora.
so bad with names. So when she did the whole thing with Nora, she came back, she was shaking and totally ripped up, and like she was completely feeling what had been wrong.
Yeah.
For Abby, on the other hand, people were kind of hinting at it, and Abby would just kind of like snidely comment like, "Oh, well, I guess they're terrible people that would do that, huh?" Just like she was just kind of like had these little weird comebacks where it was like, "Yeah, I did what I did, so what are you gonna do about it?" It was kind of a little bit a big schism there between the two characters in terms of how they felt about the torture that they had committed.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
people
sure. And
again, people process that trauma differently, So they're like, maybe her way of dealing with it is to act like it wasn't a big deal, rather than Ellie's way of dealing with it, which is to be like, horribly shaken up.
Yeah. Well, and we
Sorry,
also get to see Ellie right after the fact, whereas Abby's had time. Like there's time that has occurred after she's murdered Joel in a lot of the situations. And with Ellie, it's like the night of having just killed Nora in a very fucked up way. But yeah, I can get both sides of that.
And one little thing about Nora, everyone brings up Nora and how Ellie tortured Nora.
Yeah.
Nora literally said to Ellie's face, "That little bitch deserved it," right to her face about Joel. And I was like, okay, get her. Get her. Face her down. Get her. Whoa.
I can't press square fast enough. Let me press square.
I understood that too.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well,
that's the worst thing that she could have said to Ellie. The worst possible thing that she could have said.
In some situation, though, Nora was basically dead regardless. So she didn't want to turn into an affected. So she was just kind of like, just fucking end this. So she might have just said the worst possible thing, whether she believed it or not, right? Because she didn't want to turn into an affected.
That's
so. But yeah, it was kind of, I mean, it made me want to press square a lot faster too, Dan. I understand. It was a very fucked up thing to say in that situation. I'm trying to think for what was like the most impactful aspect of the whole game for you. What was the moment for you guys where you were just kind of like shell shocked, not say anything? Dan, was it Joel's death? Can I assume that? Am I assuming that correctly?
It was making me attack Ellie as Abby. That was that I did not like that at all. That was a lot of awful feelings. Like having to attack Ellie was just awful. It was hard to press the button to attack her.
Yeah.
During that fight.
Yeah. Oh, which one specifically? Are you talking about in the theater or the one at the end? Or
the theater.
The theater.
The theater, like in the halfway point where she's still big and bulky.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, the theater scene was the one where I was just kind of like, and I didn't say anything because when she has like, not fucking Debbie. What is Ellie's girlfriend? Dina. When she has Dina with the knife to her throat, I was just kind of like, is she gonna kill Dina?
Yeah.
Is that? And then she gets hit with the arrow, and I was kind of like, oh God. And then it gets a little bit worse after that, and then it gets a little bit better. So that for me, I think was the most impactful moment. And Code, to kind of, you were always wanting to get back to that moment when they cut away from you. Did it make that moment better because it was such a build up to it, or were you just upset that you had to wait that long to get to that moment? Like, was it too long?
A little bit of both. I'm definitely with Anne, where I did like the culminative event of like things coming together, and when especially when Abby's like moving through the aquarium and everything. That scene was really cool. Kind of seeing it all finally getting to the point. Yeah, that was really fun. But for me, I think one of the biggest things that kind of shell shocked me is I really liked Jesse.
Yeah,
that was a great character. Like I really liked him. I kind of liked where they were going with him. I thought, it was cool about, he kept talking about his parents and, he was going to be a father and all this stuff. And then it was just like, delete.
Just open door and he's gone.
And then they never talked about him again, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a moment where I was just kind of like, oh, so we're doing this. Like
they
even with the
Joel baby. I guess they honored him through the baby with JJ as the name, but yeah. No, I'm right there with you in the sense. He opens that door, gets shot in the head, and you're just kind of like, oh shit, what the fuck? And then it just stops and nothing.
I knew that moment was coming the second we saw Manny. Also, I immediately knew. I was like, oh, okay, so now we're going to see Manny die. Because, we saw Jesse just die, so now we're going to see Manny die. Cool, great. So it's kind of funny because like right when that door opened and he got shot, I was just like, oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
There goes Manny. We all knew it was coming. Like that was.
Did you guys figure out that was Tommy as the sniper right away? I had no idea until they revealed it.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Dan, did you figure it out right away?
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen.
Okay. I guess maybe I was just so far removed from it that the second they opened that door and it was Tommy, then he shot Manny. And then I remember specifically, I was like, oh man, I really liked Manny. That fucking sucks. And then someone was like, yeah, but he spit on Joel. And I was kind of like, yeah, but he's kind of, he was cool, man. Like, so I battled with that.
Joel, but, Joel kind of did doom the human race.
Yeah, Joel's kind of an asshole, you guys.
Kind of things that there's reasons. He's got his reasons. Manny did,
That, though. We don't know they doomed the human race.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, if they would have provided, because they talk a little bit about like what Joel did before he met Ellie and like some of the fucked up shit that he did. I wonder if they like did flashbacks to that particular moment or those particular moments a little bit more if people would have uh gotten over his death or been okay with his death. Because that seems again like the major point of um I guess diversion of if you enjoyed it or not is like if you got over the death. Dan, for you, if you were able to see like, I don't know, whatever fucked up shit Joel did, would that have helped you at all, or would you still been like Team Joel all the way, or Team Ellie, whatever team you're on? I don't know.
Depends what he did. Like, there's a lot of theoretical what he did, but we don't really know a lot for sure, other than the Firefly Hospital at the end there. Like, there's a lot of little stories bits. We don't really know what exactly he did to people in the past, like how
Yeah.
bad
It's
it
so
was.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they called him a smuggler at one point, right? Like that's what Abby and them referred to him as, was a smuggler.
Dude,
Mhm.
in Last of Us 1, when they're going through that area and she's like, "Have you ever killed innocent people?" And he's just like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
It's like I was so hoping they were gonna explore like all of that stuff in Last of Us 2, and they just never talk about it.
Yeah.
Hope there's a
Mhm.
prequel or something one day.
Might be DLC, maybe. Actually, no, they
Yeah.
said there's no
Yeah.
DLC, I think. So that's
Joel
completely
and
Oh, did
Jesse
they?
deserve a game together.
Well, there's
Joel, just the adventures of Joel and
yeah,
Jesse going out
Yeah.
on different routes. Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
I think they said there's no planned DLC for right now, but I don't know if they said that there's not going to be any in the future at all.
Okay. All right.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense for
Did
sure.
they say Last of Us 2 is the last game?
They said they're not sure if they're going to do new IP or go into Last of Us 3. I think. Chad, you'll have to correct me on here.
Oh.
I think that's what it was. There is the multiplayer stuff coming out for Last of Us 2, and Last of Us 1 multiplayer, for what it's worth, was actually quite good.
I wonder what a Last of Us 3 would look like.
I don't know. I guess you would play as like Abby and Lev, potentially.
And drop Ellie?
People would hate that.
I mean, how
Yeah,
she doesn't have fingers. How does she shoot a gun? Learn to shoot the other hand, I guess.
She has these fingers.
She
And
she
these-
lost her bottom one, so she still has.
Yeah, these two.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never
Yeah.
fired a gun. I don't know if I want to see a Last of Us 3. I think I'm okay with like how it
Yeah.
ended. I don't know what you would do to like continue from where it is. Like you're saying, maybe if there was like a Last of Us 3, but it was actually like a prequel or
yeah.
something, but then no Ellie, so then I don't know. I don't know how you would do that.
Let
I
me
could
ask,
do it just Joel Last of Us, just saying. I
just Joel doing fucked up
I
shit.
could do it just Joel Last of Us.
Let me ask you guys this: after playing The Last of Us 2, do you think it was a welcomed addition to the story, or would you rather have it just been Last of Us 1 and that's it? Because I'm in camp, I would have been fine if Last of Us 1 was the only game we got. I'm glad to have played Last of Us 2, but I think I was perfectly happy leaving the story where it was with Last of Us 1.
I think that I personally would say that I am glad that they made Last of Us 2, and I'm glad that I played it. And I liked the expansion on Ellie's character. I think I actually was reading where people were saying like they made Ellie not fun and she's not cracking jokes anymore. And I'm like, she she wanted to die, and then she watched the dude's head get caved in, and you want her to be like making sarcastic jokes and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
get her a dad joke book.
like of course she's not going to be as like cheerful and stuff as as in the first game. She was like a child, and you actually see that transformation in the first game where Joel is like, I don't fucking care about you, you're just cargo, and she's all like trying to get to be like cheerful and like having a fun time, and then they do the switch in the first game where Joel is like, hey kiddo, like talking about my daughter Sarah, you guys would have been friends, and she's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, so
Mhm.
like I don't know why people were surprised by that change in her personality. But I liked being able to see kind of what the continuation was of Ellie's story. But that being said, I don't know if I would want a third one after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where they would take. I guess maybe Abby and Lev going to find the fireflies, and yeah, I don't know. The original question though, where would you rather them have stopped?
I I absolutely loved Last of Us 1. And honestly, my response is kind of a two-parter. I think a Last of Us 2 would have been great. I wish it had a different story and focus. I loved Last of Us 1 and I loved seeing the development of that relationship. And I think there was so much interesting stuff they could have done and so much interesting history they could have explored. And the relationship between Joel and Ellie could have flourished. And I wish that Last of Us 2 had been more about continuing that, about finding the history, about a different like I wish there was a Last of Us 2 where Joel didn't die until the end and he had a really good, meaningful death and there was no Abby. I think that they tried too hard to tell a different story with Last of Us 2, and they kind of got so enthralled with trying to deliver this powerful message that they kind of lost what made Last of Us 1 special. And I think that they brought in too many plot devices and too many weird conveyors, and it became muddled. And I think that it would have been a lot better if they would have kept truer to what the original was, and they would have just kind of continued that and had more of its soul present into.
Hmm.
Okay, can I
So
just want to
I
jump
think that
in?
would have been a great Last of Us 2, but not that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I I just don't. I think that like saying that it's you wanted it to be true to what The Last of Us 1 was, where it didn't have like a neat cookie cutter ending. She didn't sacrifice herself for the greater good of humanity. Joel fucking shoots Marlene, you know, and then just like kidnaps her basically and does what she in the end didn't want to have happen. And then lies to her straight to her face, and she's just like, okay. And that's the end of it, you know? It's not a Hollywood movie where it's like, oh, the good guys win and everybody survives and he gets a good, meaningful death in the end. And like, we're all happy that he sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would have been true Last of Us to
I
me.
agree. I agree with that.
But I think like it would be cool to play more of Joel because I did really like Joel's character in the first game. And I think that it surprised people that they shifted it so suddenly to being Joel and Ellie as the main characters to like Ellie and Abby. And you're like, who is this woman? I don't know her. But
yeah,
that's just me.
I disagree with Anne for the same reason. Like, I feel like the only way that Last of Us 2 could have existed would be with a Last of Us story, and that's exactly what Last of Us 2 was. Like, there are no happy endings in that world. Nothing is good in that world.
Yeah.
If it's good for 5 seconds, and then you open a door and get shot through the fucking head like Jesse did, right? Like, nothing in that world goes well. And I think that is kind of what that story really hammered down in Last of Us 2, which was started, I think, in Last of Us 1. But I totally agree. I would love to see a happy ending. I'd love to see, Joel have to sacrifice himself for some reason to let Ellie live or something like that. Like that would be,
or maybe an even more like, I mean, although it's hard to top basically choosing Ellie over humanity. So
right.
they couldn't really do that again.
Kind of
right?
up the antes
But
a little bit, right?
yeah, I know. And maybe that's one of the reasons they kind of like got rid of him in Last of Us 2 was because they were like, he already kind of cashed out his ultimate decision. So now we need to kind of focus on something else. Maybe go a little bit more internal with it. I certainly wouldn't have thought it needed to be a happy story. I think that it could have had Ellie and Joel die in it, in a different kind of like schism kind of thing. And it certainly didn't. I think if it was a happy story, it wouldn't have been Last of Us because that's never what it's been about. But I do think that one of the things that was really so amazing about one was the relationship development and the world building. And I felt like that was kind of sacrificed in two for this kind of more structured story that they really wanted to kind of like bang out. And all that kind of organicness was just not really there. But no, I certainly don't think it needed to be a happy story or even a good like a one that made you feel good.
A positive story.
It certainly didn't make you feel good at the end of Last of Us 1. Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that made it special. So yeah, it felt like a lot of the soul of one was missing from 2.
I think I was more responding to your comment that you wish that Joel had more of a good, meaningful death, which maybe I mistranslated that into like he has like a funeral and like dies peacefully of old age.
No one has funerals in the last. No, funerals are just forbidden.
Okay. I see what you mean.
I shouldn't have said good. Maybe more impactful. Like it just felt like. And granted, I do completely understand how people like that. It is a world that's vicious, and that every death is kind of just it just happens and it's meaningless. But it's just and that's a good trope for games like this. It's a good post-apocalyptic thing to explore. where it's anyone can die at any time, Game of Thrones style. Like that's cool. That's cool. But I do still think that it could have been done better. I'm kind of with Dan, like he was talking about earlier. I just feel it could have been done in a more realistic, a more meaningful way, not just something to kind of like happen for the story. There's more creative, more interesting ways that it could have happened. Yeah.
Nice. Someone agrees with you. You got an email about it.
I did. Oh, it's Neil. And he says, yeah, you're right. Oh, there you go.
We're going to redo the whole game.
We're redoing it. We're retconning. We're unreleasing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan, for you, going back to the original question, feel free to jump in on anything that was just said.
Yeah. I don't want to take away from the people that felt this was a 10 out of 10 game, like a game that made them feel stuff, that made them feel like really. Some people absolutely love this game top to bottom. It was one of the most impactful, emotional, attached games they've ever played in their entire life. And I don't want to take away from that from people. It's just for the rest of us that didn't enjoy it, it wasn't the game that I was expecting. Like the first game kind of established that it was a story about Joel and Ellie for whatever that was. And it just felt like this game too quickly, as Joel was saying, went to a different route. And it didn't feel like Last of Us 2. It felt like the third game in the series. Like it felt like there was a game missing in between the two games. And they kind of filled the little gap with the flashbacks. But I felt like Joel and Ellie's relationship deserved a little more time before this happened, at least to me. But for those that loved it, I'm glad you loved it. I don't think you're wrong for liking it. I think we can all like and dislike games that we like. I personally didn't like it. It wasn't the game I was expecting, and I just didn't like the execution of it personally. But I think that I personally would have liked a different game for the second game versus what this was.
I'll be honest, I hadn't considered that, but now that Dan said it, I completely agree. This felt like a Last of Us 3, and it felt like we could have had the 3 years between 1 and 3 been the actual Last of Us 2, where we got that character development, we got the relationships, and then think about how much more impactful that Joel's death would have been in this one. Like that's that's a great point. That's a great point.
It would have been more impactful, but like this is obviously why I'm not a writer. I don't know what those 3 years could have been in terms of like the level of tension or the level of violence or the level of Last of Us. I don't know if that could have been like interesting enough. Like, Ellie, we got to go grow some crops. Let's go get the corn.
I mean, that town dude, the story of that town actually surviving in that world. I would have loved to hear that from all the bandit.
You wanted a base building game, Co. Come on.
Yeah, that's.
Yes, please. I'll take that.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not gonna say that I wouldn't have enjoyed base building Last of Us. But I mean, I think there could have been so many interesting things they could have explored there. You know, all the different characters coming and going, and you know, all the different political things that go on in there. I mean, this is a town that's lived in that world for 3 to 4 years. That alone, I said during the playthrough, like, how did this happen? Like thinking of all the terrible ways that people kill each other in that world. Like it's kind of a cool story. So yeah, you know, I could have been fun. I would have been fine with Sim Last of Us.
I feel like that would have been a different story than they've ever told, which is maybe the thing that you're wanting in the first place. But like, it's such a personal story in terms of personal relationships between characters and not like the story of how a town prospered. But that's not saying they couldn't tell that story. That's just not what they told in Last of Us 1, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I thought I wanted to know more about the religious camp. Like, it's kind of hinted at that, like, what's the leader of the wolves? Isaac. When Isaac says that, there's a line in there that basically says that Isaac killed the like leader of the religious cult during a peacetime, and she served as a martyr, and that's why they're like at odds with one another. Like, that story was very interesting to me, and they didn't really go into that at all.
I was so pissed when I found out the chick was dead. I thought we were going to meet her. I was like, I can't wait to meet this girl and figure out how she started this crazy religion and all this stuff. And it's like, and then you find out she's dead, and it's just like, oh. And then I was like, okay, well, at least maybe we can find her teachings. Like, maybe we can learn more about her message and everything. And it's just like,
yeah, that you mentioned world building.
It's like, what's all this stuff? Like, come on, man.
You mentioned world building. And that stuff was cool.
Yeah.
I loved going through the entire section when you're on that island. Was just like when you're riding the horse through the fire or the village on fire. That shit was just like how is this on a PS4? This looks so stupidly good. I found myself
Yeah,
saying that multiple times throughout the game.
the game's a technical marvel for graphics. They
It
just
really is.
somehow
I don't.
Yeah.
pulled magic out of their ass with that one.
There's so many scenes in that game that are just like, how does it look this good? Like it
Yeah.
really, it hammers home that like art direction is so fucking huge in these type in games now, where it's not just like how good
level
can your
design.
graphics look. Yeah, the level design was also on point. It was also
Amazing.
the level design was also too good. I found myself at least on Survivor being like, all right, I know there's a door here. I know there's a door here. I'm gonna throw a thing over there and let's see what happens. And then a door like literally right next to me just opens up. And I'm like, God damn it, no, I died there. That like I found myself having to learn when I was playing on Survivor every single fucking door that existed on those levels and knowing exactly like the patrol paths that they had, both on a like horizontal level and also on a vertical level towards some of the end.
Yeah.
There's just so many different ways that you could just get got, and that was really cool to see for sure. They've really like excelled at making small arenas from kind of the Uncharted days to now. Like they've really figured that shit out for sure.
That last area. Go ahead.
I was gonna say for people who haven't played like the more recent Uncharted games, regardless of what you think about Naughty Dog's like storytelling and stuff, the small details that they put into the games make them so beautiful. Like it's not just about the like world building, like the set and everything and the graphics, but it's about the tiny animations. Like when you're in the workbench and you're like like messing with your gun and stuff, and she's actually like taking things apart and like taking the bullets out. And the trading cards, especially, I showed my girlfriend like a clip because you pick up the cards and the way that her hand moves to like turn over the card is
Yeah.
so good. She was just like, okay, great. Like, that's fine. But those little tiny things are so interesting to me. And I think that they did a really good job with that.
Yeah. From like, yeah, everything technical from the animations. I forget his Twitter account. There's a Twitter account that I think Neil Druckmann was retweeting a lot of just different battle scenes that happened. And like watching that stuff from someone that has like After Effects skills and like slowing shit down, it looks absurd how you don't really catch it when you're playing the game because it all happens so fast. But like seeing the character fall down and like grab something, throw a bottle, and then like move forward, take the shot, and someone else comes in the room, sees that, looks back over at you, and you like shoot them in the head, and like all that stuff in slow motion looks insane. I'll try to find the Twitter account to tweet that out, but or retweet some of those. But that stuff looks really good.
Laying prone and reloading while like
yes,
prone underneath a car and stuff. That was so cool.
yeah, they definitely got the gameplay. While I don't think it's like perfect gameplay, they definitely got it to like a really high point. This is probably the best the gameplay's been for the Naughty Dog style of games in terms of Uncharted and Last of Us for me.
The motion capture was also amazing. Like the scene with Joel and Ellie, you could see the subtle like expression on his face as he's playing the guitar. You can see his emotion in his face. Just the tiniest little details in the actor's expression was so good.
Yeah, that as well as the acting.
Right,
I
coupled
think.
with the amazing acting.
Yeah, it was
top
insane.
notch in most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was so many of the scenes like it was like I mean, it was you were watching a movie unfold in terms of just the subtle nods, the body language, all that stuff conveyed 100% through all the cutscenes. It was phenomenal to see that stuff for sure. I think most people will agree that like from a technical level, the game was a 10 out of 10, and definitely like a great way to send off the PS4 as we're getting ready for a console cycle here. Coat was a while ago. Do you remember what you were going to say? We kind of jumped into 10 different things after that. Yeah, I didn't think so because I don't remember how to pitch you into that.
It's never important. Don't worry about it.
It's always tangents. That's the essence
Random
of the
peanut
show.
gallery stuff. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious. Someone in the chat brought up, and I don't like questions. What was your favorite? But I feel like this is a game where it actually. I'm interested to know what was y'all's favorite like scene from the game or moment. Really, I don't want to say scene, but moment from the game for you guys. There might be. I think everyone's racking their brain right now, so maybe that's a good sign. But
I really, really enjoyed the many different scenes from the museum, from Joel and Ellie, the dinosaur museum. I thought that was pretty great. I pretty much knew exactly what was happening when they got into the moon capsule, which was really fun. I thought that was a fun scene. But no, just a lot of that was really super endearing. The museum was awesome. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, that museum scene was like a taste of the game I wanted, and that was just like experiencing those moments between Ellie and Joel were just so good. And I loved putting the hat on the dinosaurs. That was the best part.
Did you get every dinosaur?
Yep, got them all.
Was there an achievement for putting a hat on every dinosaur?
Nope.
Okay.
I was
Did
expecting one, but
yeah, did anyone
there was not.
platinum the game out of the four of us? I did not platinum it. Okay. I don't know like what platinum being the game involves, but I don't think it was that difficult. But and for you, what was your favorite moment from the game?
I would agree the museum and I don't know if you guys did the pet store with, or no, the music store with Ellie in Seattle, where she plays the guitar for Dina. I really like that scene as well.
Yeah. Did you think you were going to get DMCA'd during that? Because I definitely sang over the chorus of that song. Take on
actually,
me.
the farmhouse. Well, because that one's a cover, so I was like, this is probably fine. But the farmhouse scene where she plays the record, my VOD did get muted for that, so I was like, oh,
really? Because it's Pearl Jam, right? Or is that the Pearl Jam, or is that something else?
No, that was like some other.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. The Pearl Jam was the song that Ellie's or that Joel sung. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, it was like a record that was like a cover of a Johnny Cash song, but I guess it's like an actual recording. I think. Yeah, Crooked.
Okay.
Still.
Yeah, I don't know. Did everyone? You said your VOD got claimed for that, right?
I believe so.
Okay, I didn't look
muted.
actually. Yeah, or muted, not claimed. Yeah. I was not sure. I don't know what my favorite scene was. I asked that question and then I didn't think about it like a dumbass while you guys were answering. I think in terms of like impactful scenes, the scene where it finally comes together after you played both parts in the theater, that was definitely a scene that I enjoy is not a word that I would use there, but it was definitely the one where I was like the most interested in what was going to happen. Like when she grabs Dina, my mouth just kind of dropped because I was like, she's gonna fucking slit her throat, and like it's not gonna go well. This is not gonna go well at all. And they kind of just like keep upping the ante there. And especially where Dan, I think it was you that said where you have to play as Abby and kind of hunt Ellie there in that scene.
Yeah,
that
was rough.
It was a thing that I knew I had to play, but I didn't enjoy playing it, which I don't think I've experienced that before in games where I didn't actively enjoy what the character was doing that I was doing at the same time because of my inputs into the game. Like that was a very weird scene. And so maybe like that whole thing when that like culminates in the theater was probably my favorite moment because it was just an amalgamation of things that I was super invested in, moments that I haven't really experienced in games where I was playing things I didn't want to play, but I knew I had to see the rest of the story. That was pretty good. And then kind of just like, I enjoyed the smaller stuff, the like random side conversations that just happen as you're moving through the levels. There's so much like little bits of character building that occur there that I think in some ways are a little bit more impactful than the overall cutscene stuff. Specifically with like Abby and Lev. There's a moment where like Lev brings up what was the God damn it, what was the guy's name that died that was Mel's
Jesse?
No, that was Mel's boyfriend.
Owen.
Yeah.
Owen?
Yeah, where Lev was like, so what's going on with you and Owen? And they're like in the middle of fighting monsters or some shit. She's like, shut the fuck up. We can't talk about that. Not now, Lev.
That was when she was walking over the heights.
That's what it was. Yeah. It was. Yeah, that's right. That whole scene was great. That bridge scene was great.
Dude, that was a really, really fun scene.
Yeah. So it was good. JP and names, name and worse still. I mean, there's a lot of names in that. Yeah. I'm also watching Dark right now, so it's impossible to remember any names. Go ahead.
I really like the scene with when you're playing as Abby and you're hunting Ellie in the theater because you could see Ellie like crafting mines and shit. And I was like, I could hear her doing it. I was just like, she's putting down mines? Like, oh, like I'm gonna die. I'm actually gonna die. And I really, I mean, it sucked. Like it was that feeling of just like, I don't want to do this, but I can't. I was trying to think of another game that has put me in that position where I just, as the player, didn't want to succeed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could think of any that are like, I actually didn't want to win that fight, but I knew that I had to progress the story.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely a first for me in terms of games where like succeeding was failure in a sense,
Yeah.
like failure on a
Pass
personal
failed
level.
successfully.
It felt
Yeah,
bad to succeed.
yeah. It was definitely an odd game in that regard. Whereas most games are like, hey, you got the high score or whatever, you killed the big bad, that type of stuff. It was a dichotomy for sure. Or juxtaposition rather. Anything else? I mean, I were kind of like reaching the end of the conversation on it, but
I really hated the dog mechanic. I was pissed.
Yeah,
I didn't like that because it you were forced into killing the dog at one point. There's like a part of the story that like you get surprised by the dog and you have no other option.
right.
Um, so I was trying to like avoid them, but they made them so impossible to avoid as well, like because of the scent trail thing.
Oh god,
Like
it's
you
nightmare.
could throw a brick or something, but they would find you again, and I really didn't like that. And I know like somebody in my chat when I was talking about it was like, um, well, you don't feel bad about killing all the people, but you feel bad about the dogs. Like that's how literally every human is. Like you always feel worse
Yeah.
for the dogs in the games that and like in movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I was really mad when they switched us to Abby, and there's like, here's all the dogs. You can throw the ball for the dog, and here you can pet the dog. And I'm like, I get it. I didn't want to kill the dog anyways, and you said that there wasn't going to be any dog killing, and then you outright lied to me. And now
Yeah.
I have to kill these dogs. There's like nothing that you can do about it. So
The dog moment that fucked me up is when you first go into the aquarium as Ellie and you just kill a random dog, right? Like the dog just attacks you. And then you go back through that as Abby and you realize that that dog was Alice, the one that you played with the entire game. That was when I was like, fuck you, game, you fucking piece. I didn't mean to fucking. Dog attacked me. All right. It's like I had to self rationalize in that
With the
particular
fetch
moment.
part, I was just like, this is my ending. I'm just going to sit here and throw this ball to this dog for the rest of this game. This is the ending of My Last of Us 2, and everything's fine and nothing happens, and this dog lives forever.
You're not wrong. Also, that stadium was kind of nice. You know, you could have hung out in that stadium for quite some time.
Yeah.
It was a nice little thing they had going for sure. But then they
My,
had to
my
leave.
ending, there was this part where you could go down the stairs as Abby, like you kept cycling around. It was like under like a monorail, and if you go to the end, you're supposed to jump across and get to a different area. If you just keep walking, she falls down and like ragdolls on the ground in a really funny death. And I was just like, "That's it, Last of Us 2, roll credits."
So you just threw Abby down some stairs. That's how it went. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Any other moments of the dogs were? I played through I played through all of Ellie's part on Survivor, and I remember texting Co after like day 1 or day 2 and just being like, "Dude, these fucking dogs are the worst. They're so stupid to deal with. I don't know what to do.
Yep.
I get so fucking upset." Yeah, there was a lot of going back and forth about that. But that's just
The more than a few times, I would meticulously clear an entire area, and then the dog would be the thing that would end that run.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd have to do all of it all over again.
Yeah.
Oh man, especially that part where you're like moving through the like small neighborhood and you're first going to find Tommy, and you meet up with Jesse at the end of that sequence.
Yes.
For the first time, thinking that it was
Yeah.
going to be Tommy. Like that area was so rough, man. Oh, my Lord.
I think towards the end of that, after I'd wiped out like 75% of the forces, and then you're in the back area of that part Co where you just have to run and you're in the basement with the 3 guys coming down the stairs. I just said fucking didn't fight him. I was like so done with that area. I just ran past him because it was so frustrating. It's at a certain point for sure. Any other moments or points of conversation you guys want to bring up about The Last of Us 2?
I feel really bad for Dina.
For Dina? Yeah.
Dina, yeah. She went with Ellie, knew she was probably pregnant at the time, I think, when they left, and went anyways to try and help her. And then in the end, Ellie like leaves her, and then she just has to like move all of her shit out of that house, and I assume go back to Jackson. So I feel like she kind of screwed over.
They moved a lot of shit. When I saw that for the first time when she walks back into the house, I was like, how the fuck did they move all of this out of here? Like, that's not, you can't call U-Haul in the apocalypse.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
How does this work? Because they moved everything out of that room except for her room, or out of that house except for her room.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dina did not get a happy ending for sure. At least in the
Not at
game.
all.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
sad stuff for sure.
I guess she survived with her kid, and that's a miracle in this time. But
Yeah, yeah. I also they don't explain it, but I guess Tommy helped her move back. Like, there's no way she
I
could
mean,
have done that by herself, right?
there was a letter on the table that you can read as Ellie that's from Jesse's parents
Right.
telling them
Oh,
like they're welcome to come back to Jackson if they want or
so it
whatever.
might have been
So
them. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's true. I did not think of that. Dan or Co. Any?
I was really sad that the pun book didn't make a reappearance at least a little bit in the second game. That pun book was amazing in the first one.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it was good. I don't know if it would have worked
Agreed.
though. There was like after the opening scene with Dina, no one really cracked the jokes anymore, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
I think maybe Abby had one or two during her portion with Lev, but not a very jokey game for sure. There was no fun towards the latter half of the game. Super serious. Um, Co, any final thoughts? Any other comments?
I'm kind of glad it's all done. Like
Yeah.
it was a fun experience, and but like somebody asked me at the end, like, hey, are you gonna play it again and go through it? And it's kind of like,
Ugh.
when I finished Last of Us 1, I knew I had played something special. Like I knew I would enjoy playing it again, and it was a really good time. With Last of Us 2, when I finished it, I was just kind of like, okay, I think like we're done. That's it. And I definitely don't have that same feeling of Last of Us 1 where it's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this again someday. Kind of like that was a good experience and I'm glad it's over. Like
Did you guys do the thing where you go and watch other people that have played play through the scenes? Because I have not gone back. I only watched. Let me rephrase that. I only watched the Joel's death scene with about like 5 or 6 streamers the first day, but I've not gone back to watch any of you guys or any of our other friends like react to the ending or anything like that. Have you guys done anything like that?
not yet.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I definitely watched every single one of you play through Joel's death. I watched a lot of other people play through Joel's death. So much so that I might be desensitized towards that scene now, having seen it so many times. But yeah, it was that I think was kind of the critical point in the game for sure. So it also happened so fast, right? Like first 2 or 3 hours of the game. So well, I think that's that then. I think that's Last of Us 2 for Spoilercast.
One thing I do like about this game is I have never seen a video game get so many people to talk about it for so long after.
Sure.
Well, no matter what their opinion are, like this, everyone is debating this game more than I've ever seen any other game. It's amazing how polarized everyone is and how much discussion's going on. A
Yeah.
lot of fighting too, but there's a lot of good discussion in between all that fighting.
Yeah. I remember it was well before the game came out. It was either in an interview or he tweeted it or something that Neil Druckmann said that his hope for this game is that it is divisive in the sense that people either love it or people either hate it. I feel like there are very few people that are in between on it. Co was actually the first person that I felt like be in between on it. Everyone else was on camp hate or camp love for sure. So I guess with that in mind, he kind of got his ambition there.
Got his wish.
Yeah, he got his wish.
Yeah.
For sure. I will say for viewers, if you guys are looking for some more Last of Us content to watch, I'm not sure who the host was, but Neil, Troy Baker, and Ashley Johnson did Spoilercast for like 2 or 3 hours where they kind of talked about the game in full. Then I think there was also something else with I'm blanking on the voice actress or the actor really for Abby. Someone help me here.
Laura Bailey.
Laura Bailey, yeah, was also on a spoiler cast of her own, kind of talking about Abby and all that stuff. And I know those are very good pieces if you're looking for more information on that. Chat saying it's Greg Miller, so of course it was because he's everywhere. Greg Miller from Kind of Funny, I think did those. So definitely look that stuff up. Oh yeah, someone's asking about the card game. Annie brought up the card game. I would love to see the card game characters be the next game, be the next IP from Naughty Dog. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
into that.
they're kind of like a lot of them were like ripoffs of
like
Marvel characters or like other like DC
every
characters. You know,
superhero is a ripoff of another superhero. I get what you're saying. They were also. I'm curious.
we're cool though.
Do you know, or do any of you know? Because there's obviously Dr. Uckman, which is Neil Druckmann's character. Were the other cards from devs, or
Yeah, there was one that I saw somebody tweeted about, and they were like, "Oh, I'm this character," but I can't remember who it was. So I think
Okay.
probably a couple of them were. Yeah,
Gotcha. That's cool.
I'm sure there's a list somewhere.
Cool. All right. Well, that's the Last of Us discussion. We're done. No more. We're gonna take a break. We'll come back and talk about other stuff. Maybe we'll figure out why Doc got banned. Probably not though. No one knows. We'll see. We'll be right
I know
back.
why, I just can't tell you.
Okay. Dan knows why, but he can't tell us. So
I know why, but I don't want to tell you.
ooh, Ann knows why.
I could tell you, but I won't.
Ooh.
I don't know anything.
I know why. It's because he's not really a doctor. It all came out. It came to a head, and frankly, I'm just going to tell you that's it's really unfortunate.
It's
but it
either
turns
that-
out he's not an actual accredited doctor.
Yeah, it's that or Blockbuster is, finally coming after him for lying after so many years about his winnings, One or the other. It led to the downfall of the company essentially. So they have a lot to gain from that. So, yeah. We're going to take a break though. We'll come back and talk about other games and stuff. There's some other stuff to talk about. So we'll be right back after the break. See you guys then.